I want to take a quick poll. How old do you guys think LinkedIn is? Shout your answers. No prizes. 10? 15, 5, 8, 7. So somewhere between 4 and 10 is what I'm hearing. 15 I'm hearing. Okay. Facebook? 8 and 10. Okay. Closer on the money, I think. They'll tell you. Twitter?
25.
Okay. You guys call yourselves digital people? Really? Huh? Okay. But there was a reason, apart from insulting you, there was another reason I was asking this. Today is a special day for one of these people. Take a guess. Take a guess. Happy birthday, Twitter.
Thank you. That's a pleasant surprise. Thank you, guys.
You have more pleasant surprise coming up. Wow. March 21, 2006, first tweet ever. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Twitter. Happy birthday to you. Woo!
Thank you. That's very overwhelming. Thank you.
Okay. After having made them, or at least Twitter, happy today, first question for each of you. What is the dumbest thing you've seen a brand do on social media? You can choose to answer for your platforms or for each other. That's perfectly all right. You can mix it up as well. But the dumbest thing brands and or agencies have done on social media that you've seen, that you'd like us to stop doing. Please, anyone?
Sure. Go ahead.
So Kathy, I'll talk about two things, right? So on one hand, we have brands that come to us and they ask us, can you change that comment button to, let's say, my brand message, or can you change the color of the Facebook page to my brand page? And I look at them and I look at their big brand guidelines book lying in their room, and I say, really? This is what you want us to do? So that's on one hand, right? On the other hand, I also want to talk about, when we think about the theme of what not to do on social media, I think the biggest thing, and this is more of a theme, so I hope it's applicable more broadly to the audience, is actually not to think of us as social media, right? But to put us right alongside all of your other mass awareness platforms, television, radio, print. Quick stats, right? Over 93 million people on Facebook on a monthly active basis, 75 on mobile, 41 on a daily active basis. So, reach that's comparable to the top 5 GECs, higher than the largest radio channel, daily reach that's 5 times higher than the largest English daily. And Karthi, I think people intellectually get those numbers and they say, of course, we can see that, we can see the numbers. But the thing is about translating that understanding into action. And the question that I would like to ask is, are you translating that into the same level of scrutiny, the same level of planning, the same level of emphasis as you think about how is it that you build your brand and business objectives on a platform like Facebook as you do with your other mass awareness channels? So that's what I'd like to highlight.
Fair enough. So think of us as a reach medium, not the erstwhile metrics, I think is what Kirtika is saying.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that a little more later, I think.
And I can give you one example just to illustrate that, right? So Vaseline, they did, Unilever, they did their Vaseline lip therapy launch just this winter. So it's a very recent example. And they used Facebook as a central part. We partnered with Millward Brown, OMD was a great partner, to really measure the results. So, thinking about, and that's a common question that comes up. When people start thinking of us as a mass awareness channel, they ask me, they say, okay, but we don't know how to translate fans and PTAG into business results. And it's about, don't use those as business, as your business metrics, but use what did you do on brand awareness? What did you do on purchase intent? And that's what we were able to prove with campaigns like that.
Nishant?
So if I think about dumbest, I think probably you've seen examples of this where people ignore what's going on social media. Either they ignore it or they ask a question, they get a response they didn't expect, and then just freeze. So you've seen it with, international campaigns like Netflix, Domino's, etc., and it hurts them pretty fast, pretty hard. So I think that's, they're kind of myopic in the way they think about it. I've seen so many examples with our team where they've actually paid for the campaign, but they're not ready to go live with their microsite and so on and so forth. So, sometimes it's just the operational snafus where one side of the brand is not talking to the other side. Those are, I'm happy with my team that pushes back and says, okay, we're not going to launch because, you're not ready. So that is always good. But, I think to pick up sort of on what Kritika was saying, thinking about social and digital, not as a channel, but I would go even further and say as a mindset. It's how we think, how you design, say, a mobile campaign, which is simple and streamlined, how you think about building virality into your campaign, irrespective of what channel you use, becomes so important, so effective, that I think thinking of us and investing us not just in this experimental social bucket, but thinking of us as a full channel, I think is good. Probably one other piece I'll pick up and pass to Barry is a lot of brands think that the brand or the product needs to be in the forefront, which is completely changing. We were talking about this at Stream a couple of weeks ago, of how the brand, what social is enabled is conversations to happening. And conversations to be happening between two people that you trust, and the brand becomes a facilitator of that conversation and ongoing engagement. So thinking about us in that light, I think becomes very, very important. I mean, Citibank is a great example where they've, for professional women, just targeted on LinkedIn the group where they can actually just have a conversation. And they've seen the uplift in their metrics, 50% increase in unaided brand awareness, 32% increase in consideration, but they never talk product once. So I think it's possible to do it.
Before you go, Barry, I'd like to warm it up a little more. Nishant and Kritika have been reasonably polite to brands and agencies. Let me fess up. At Kota, some of the dumb things we've been doing, and I can fess up because I know from April 1 we're fixing it. One of the things that is really dumb which we do is we have customer service on Twitter, but 5 p.m. Friday we switch off, 9 a.m. Monday is when we come back on. Because it's like escalations, right? It's only people who are really upset with us who are going to write. We can deal with them on Monday morning, it's okay. It's not like the call center where he's calling and I have to handle it right then and there. So that's been a journey of learning for us. The other dumb thing that I've seen us do is when guy from, for example, and this is a real live example, you can probably go find it for yourself, from Dehradun comes to our Facebook page and says, I want to open an account with Kotak. What do I have to do? I know he's from Dehradun, right? So if I was smart, what I would do is go check up if I have a branch in Dehradun, find the address, ideally find the branch manager's number, and write back to him saying, this is who you got to call, or even better, give me your number, I'll get him to call you so you'll know he's calling, etc., etc. What we have been doing for the longest time is templated. If you'd like to open an account, here's the link to the apply now page, blah, blah, blah. So brands can be incredibly dumb. Now, Barry, having set it up, do you want to stick the knife in a little deeper?
Frankly speaking, between the three of you, you've covered all dumb things. You've covered the spectrum of dumbness. I don't have anything to say now. No, just joking. So I think I'll say two things here. So you guys have made great points. I think two things. One, and I won't call it dumb, but one thing that trap that brands fall into is to try to be who they are not on social media, which is we see that very often. Brands have a preconceived notion of either trying to be funny or cool or trying to be too perfect on social mediums. You don't have to be that way. People on social mediums prefer authenticity more than perfection. They prefer to talk to humans and not PR machines. And brands often fall into the trap of trying to be just too perfect, saying the right thing, and making sure there are absolutely no mistakes. So one thing that we encourage brands to do is to think of their brand as a human being. What kind of human being will they be? Is he a friendly neighbor? Is he a knowledgeable uncle? Is he a parent? What do you think is the voice of your brand? And try to use that voice on your social media account. The brand, the way it exists on social media, should not be in conflict with what it's doing outside of social media. That's one. Number two is brands also fall into this trap of asking for things, wanting people to buy, inform about their products right from day one. We think that's not the right way to go about doing it. Your social media account is like a deposit, and you've got social currency. Now, how do you create social currency? By first giving and depositing in that account. You provide things that are relevant, useful to people, without asking for it. That's how you will create a deposit. And the good formula is to first give, and then take. Then ask for something. But first create a deposit. This is a social currency, and you want to use it wisely. So A, be who you are. It's okay to be authentic and imperfect. People are not looking for perfection. B, make sure you have enough deposit in your social currency account before you debit from it.
Super, great advice, I think. But to pick up on be who you are, and this was discussed in just an earlier panel on content before lunch, brands that naturally have great content, like media brands, a sports brand or a GEC brand, they are, or Condé Nast or whatever, all of them they naturally have great content, and therefore engaging with social media, followers, etc. comes naturally, comes easily. There's a wealth of good content available to play with. Dull, boring brands who have as Deepali put it earlier, drought of content, banks for example, I would argue detergent brands, financial services in general obviously. So we resort to the plain old thing of using Bollywood, cricket and music to fall back on and engage. That's right, that's fine, right? No?
I have a point of view, but whoever wants to go for it. So I think it's fine, but there's a fine but, which is if Bollywood, social media, cricket is in alignment with what you're doing offline, it's great. But if you're not doing this Bollywood, social media, cricket, or whatever otherwise, and all of a sudden you introduce it in your social media platform, people will see a dissonance and it will conflict with your brand personality. And that's not good user experience. Even if you do not have cool content, you're not a CPG brand, we believe there are two things any social media message should have. Number one, and it could be either of these two things or both. One is practical value. Second is an emotional core, an emotional value. Now think about the message you're putting on social media. It should either have practical value or it should have an emotional value. If it has neither of those, then probably it will not be accepted by people, people won't like it. If it has both, fantastic. If it has one of these, that's great. But think about it, there is out in the world, there is a storytelling battle going on. It's all about the supply and demand of attention. And you got to have a strong story to tell. And the way you tell your story is to either provide practical value or provide emotions. But having neither and just going for some buzzwords is probably not the right way to go about it.
Yeah. So maybe I'll build on a slightly different aspect of that. You talked very well about what to say, right? I think the content marketing boom that's happening is scaring brands because they're viewing this world of content as this huge mountain to climb, as you were saying. Some have assets versus not. And I think what you have to realize is that the nature of social media is not, like cycle time is not in years, we're talking about seconds and minutes. And if you think about that, what you need is just snackable content, something that is insightful in that moment and adds value to me, and then do you do that over time? And so if you think about that, the fact that you don't have repositories of content is actually an opportunity. Because I find with brands that have a lot of content and white papers and all, they're trying to push this long form content, but that's not how social people want to engage on social. They want the snackable insight, and then they will go further if it's relevant to them. So think about making it relevant, and think about just making it snackable. Other good ways is that you don't have to be the owner of the content necessarily. Obviously, please don't go violating copyrights, but delivering the relevant message to your target audience that you think may be useful. So for financial brands, for example, delivering an insightful article on how do you manage personal finances to someone who's looking for wealth management is useful. You may not have authored the content, but you're facilitating that, and the member in this case gives you kudos or value for it. So I think you have to demystify content from being this huge behemoth that you don't know anything about to just thinking about it as an individual for yourself. What would you find useful? Something small, something short, and curating that content and become the curator rather than the creator in all cases. Obviously, you should have some.
Sure, I'd like to step in there before we go to Kirtika. And financial services is what comes naturally to me. I find that while the notion of providing useful advice on where to invest or how to plan your finances and all, theoretically it sounds right. But I have a deep suspicion that while hanging out on social media, nobody wants to do that shit. It's like, if someone asked me if I was watching National Geographic or Discovery, I would of course say yes. But what am I actually watching? I'm watching, Kardashians or whatever, right?
Is that what you're watching? Is that?
I'm putting it out there. I'm a cool brand, see?
I think it comes down to something important that I'm hoping we'll talk a little bit about, is that context matters. The same content doesn't work in all the environments. All of us sitting up on the stage, and I suspect a lot of you, use all these social networks, but use it differently. We have, our context is different. So, yes, when you're going to hang out with your friends and family and keep in touch with them, a super heavy message may not be appropriate, or you're looking for real-time communication, going back to something that's completely irrelevant may not matter. But in a professional context, what we've found is that people are coming to us because they are looking for insights which are a little bit more professional. How do you get more productive as a professional? So it does resonate, but it's not like in the real-time context and so on. So I think tailoring your message to what the audience needs and that mindset is important. So you can have both ways.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I want to stress on the authenticity piece, right? If you're Condé Nast, yeah, sure, a user might want to hear from them every day. But let's say you're connected to, another extreme. Let's say you're connected to your dentist, and they have, there's millions of SMBs on Facebook. So, do you really want to hear from your dentist every single day? Anyone? Anyone? Yeah. So, it's really about being who you are and figuring out what is it that the user wants to hear from you. And it does not mean that you have to have like a daily, hourly posting strategy. And what we talk about is make sure that you identify the content pillars of what is it that you want to engage the user on. So for example, for a financial services company, maybe you have one pillar which is around financial advice. How do you think of life insurance, investing, etc. Another pillar could be around your product information. So it's the 40-40, and the remaining 20% could be about financial news from across the world, right? So think about your content strategy that is true to your brand message, and then focus on that. And the last thing that I'll highlight on the engagement piece is know what is it that you're engaging it for. What is the driver? Engagement in itself, we don't think is an end-all business metric. It's probably a means to an end. So making sure we identify the end in mind. Engagement can be a great metric for if you want to do creative testing, if you want to get product info, consumer insights. So making sure that we know what is it that we're engaging people for is something that I'll highlight on the content side. I just want to make one comment on the question of, but people are hanging out there to talk with their friends. Am I there as an intrusion, just saying, okay, I'm there, I'm gate crashing the party. And there, what we see is we see every single day, millions of friends requests are made, millions of brand pages are liked by people. So people are voluntarily telling us with their actions that, the car that they buy, the camera that they use, the places that they eat at is as much part of them as their friends and their family and things that they want to talk about. So it's what people are telling us with their actions. Not gate crashing.
Okay. So, Kirtika has given us a hint. Actions. How many of you wished Twitter a happy birthday on Twitter right now? What are the rest of you doing? You have a chance to get ad tech to trend globally, because in the US, Twitter hasn't woken up yet, right? Give it a shot. All three of you have been really gracious and not plugged your brands so far. You've spoken about social media in the generic sense, which I appreciate and respect.
You are getting into the coffee with Karan mode.
So here's a challenge, and this came to me from some digital agencies. They were sticking it to the clients, saying that clients think that all social media is the same, so they expect us to do roughly the same thing across all platforms, so they want us to only pay us once and use thrice or 4 times or whatever. I'd like you guys to either agree with that or refute it, and on behalf specifically of each vertical, because you'll have to explain the verticals with a rider, with a twist. So Kirtika will not talk about Facebook, she'll talk about Twitter. Nishant will talk about Facebook. No, Nishant will talk about Facebook, and Parry will talk about LinkedIn. Yeah? So hopefully they will talk about it as users, not as marketeers, not as the celebrities and luminaries they are. Yeah. Okay, go for it, people.
So first, happy birthday again.
Thank you.
It's a pretty neat milestone. You actually never give the answer for the other two as how old they were.
So Facebook is 2004. Am I
It's
right?
10 years, 10 years.
10 years.
We celebrated our
LinkedIn
10,
is 2003.
11
And
years.
while you're at it, Orkut. Does anyone know how old Orkut is? You know, just a month older than Facebook. Would you believe that?
Yeah. Hey, so I have, to your question, I use Twitter, I use LinkedIn, I use Facebook, okay? And for me, each of them serve a very different purpose. Specifically, since you asked me to talk about Twitter, you know, I think if I look at it from the outside, the thing that I think we can learn from Twitter is about the great job that they've done with public content and with partnerships, right? And that is something that I really think that Twitter has done really well.
So likewise, I use all the 3 platforms, but you know, I think if I was describing Facebook, I think Facebook is a, like I said, a fantastic, you should be thinking about Facebook in a mass media sense, right? We have far surpassed critical mass at this point across pretty much all of our platforms. We're talking about millions, not thousands of users. And so, you know, it has a similar reach that you would think of, you know, in the more traditional sense. And then, you know, the mindset of the people there are to, you know, hang out, spend time, and that's a great time to actually connect with these people with the right messages, with the right sort of offers, if you will, because they're looking, you know, to spend time on a more sort of less serious note. And so, you know, I think Facebook is a great vehicle to do that and highlight your brand.
So LinkedIn. So I'm again a user of all 3. For me, LinkedIn. Firstly, all 3 are about connections. So that's common across Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's all about connections. That's what this medium is all about. What I think LinkedIn has done very well is to take the connection element and put a filter of your professional connections and the things that are of interest to you from a professional standpoint, and made a beautiful platform and then a business around it. I think they've done it very well. The other thing that they've done very well is, and this is in the last couple of years, is they first did a fantastic job of creating professional B2B connections. They are taking it to the next level by ensuring people are sharing content and they're not just connected. So that it's not just a static connection medium, but it's a live, dynamic, pulsating platform where people can share connections, share their knowledge, and listen to some of the key stalwarts in their industry as well, so that the medium is dynamic. It's not just static. So I'm a big user of LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
Can we complete the story for each of our platforms?
No. No plugs, I'm sorry. But a round of applause, I think, because they've been so sweet to each other. If only the whole world was like this, that we all lived in bhaichare mein. Gosh. Okay, dumb things organizations do in terms of, for example, org structures to handle social media. And I'll explain what I mean by this. That on the one hand, to us it feels like social media is exactly the same as PR, because effectively once someone from my organization has tweeted something which involves my organization's name, it's out there for everyone to see. So it's effectively, I have to have my corporate communications channel, food chain, scrutinize it, it has to go through various layers of approval, etc. Obviously, that's dumb, we understand that. But the other extreme, and I discovered a lot of this not only in India but in the US when to prepare for this, I just Googled great social media fails, and it's awash with how many companies are now peopling their social media teams with teenagers because they're cool, they get it, so just unleash them at it and it'll all somehow make the brand look cooler. And of course, those young guys are going out and tweeting colorful language at customers because they're pissed with the customers, whatever, whatever. So, what's the right practice for a client to staff his team with? How much of it should be insourced? How much of it is meaningful to outsource to an agency? Because there are obviously issues around that as well. The agency is going to naturally hire the cheapest possible resource so that it can make some margin on the bargain. How old? All of that. Any inputs on this issue?
I can go. I think I'll go back to what I started with, which is about not looking at social media in a silo of its own, because that's where we see people not leveraging the medium to its fullest potential. So it's about breaking those silos. It's about truly thinking about integrated marketing campaigns, thinking about social media not as the sprinkling on the fries, but really as part of the core component of creating the fries together. So breaking the silos between who's thinking overall about your marketing campaign and making sure that digital and social are part of the upfront planning and not an afterthought. So I think and it's easier said than done because that's not how most organizations are structured, but really it is about taking that critical look at your organization and seeing how to make that happen. And I'd say the same thing for agencies as well, is how much are you making trade-offs between all the platforms versus going in and saying, okay, if I look at the overall industry pie for India, 40% on television, 40% on print, and the remaining 10% on digital. How much are you just looking at it from, here's my business objectives, what makes most sense? And it was encouraging to hear, I think we were just hearing from Mahindra about how they have moved away from print and now it's about digital and television. And different buckets might make sense for different clients, but it's really about making trade-offs at the start, not at the end.
I think if you have a decent team, I would be happy actually. That's probably the biggest problem, is that most people think of social media as free, and so they treat it like you treat anything as free, which is, someone, one person in the room maybe does it as part of a, experimental project. So I think resource it appropriately, bring it in at the right stage is very, very important. I think here for me, best practice looks like I was talking to the Dell EVP of their social strategy, and what they're doing is kind of neither of the way you described it. Neither are they staffing with just young nobodies who don't know the organization, and nor are they kind of centralizing it as a lot of others who do have resources, but they centralize it or do it. What they're doing is trying to educate their entire almost employee base on being ambassadors for their company, and laying out some rough guidelines. To be authentic, like Harry said, is very important. But doing it in a way that is consistent with your company culture, values, brand is important, and your employees are your best resource to do that. And so they're getting scale as a result of that, because everyone is handling a little part of social versus one guy staying up 24 hours to do it. But at the same time, they're arming them with tools versus telling them what to say. And I think they're setting expectations correctly with upper management to say, things will happen. There will be an odd breakdown. But that's okay, that's just part of the nature of it. And I think getting the board room to kind of accept a little bit that there's always inherently going to be some things that go wrong. It's an iterative process, I think is very important. And so, I think they're approaching it well. They're still sort of on their journey of building out this vision. But I think that's a good way of thinking about it. It's not so much about org structures. It's not so much about the age group of the person, but just enabling your employees to be your voice.
So Dell and Best Buy, I would assume, are good examples that you would refer to, who essentially
I'm not as familiar with Best Buy's social strategy, but I have heard.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll just add a little bit, Kati, to the to what I mean by working together. And I'll take the Vaseline example that I used at the start. In that one, we worked upfront with the brand manager, with the category head, with the digital team, with the agency team, right up front, right? to understand what the business goals were, what the brand objectives were. We worked together on the creative, of course the creative team to the look, but we were involved in the creation of that, set up the measurement together with Milward Brown again. First time we were doing it, so a lot of creation together, all the way to execution and monitoring. And I'll contrast that to the usual of, we will get called in and say, okay, we have the campaign, here are the creatives, and here's the kind of placement that you want. That is a distinction of when you truly are using it. And of course, we don't expect to be involved early for all campaigns, but certainly for critical ones, big launches, having that upfront involvement is a delta that we see.
So I think Kritika and Nishant have made great points. I'll just add one thing. This entire organizational evolution towards social, there is one question that once organizations understand it, they start to take steps toward it. And the question is this: do you do social or are you social? There's a difference. Doing social is different from being social. A lot of time organizations think of, we need to do social, so let's hire this school guy straight out of college who's on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn all the time, and I think he'll do a great job of it. Maybe that's a good way to start. But if that's the way to start, then there probably are 3 steps that organizations should take. Number 1, it could start with this guy who's cool, in your terms, hip, and knows how to do social media, but you need to empower him. This guy is good on social media because he has developed a knack for saying what he feels. And if you do not empower him, he probably will not be as effective when he's in your organization, when he is working under the constraints of a company policy. So have you empowered him or not? That's a very important point. The reason an Oreo could tweet, you can always, dunk in the dark when, during the Super Bowl, was because this guy who was handling the Twitter account was empowered by the CEO to send out the tweet within 25 seconds. If he had to send an email which had to go through 5 different chains of approval, that probably would not have happened. That's number 1, empowerment. Number 2, we think it's important for the CEO, the C-level, and everyone to use social media. Because once they use it, they will have a better understanding and appreciation of things that go on in this medium. You don't really have to tweet all the time, but as long as you're plugged in, I think the organization develops social culture. And the third, which we call it the social media nirvana, is, and I challenge a lot of companies with this question: do you have an MMQ for social? And by MMQ I mean muscle memory quotient. Do you have a muscle memory for social? When you're good at something, let's say you play golf and you swing, you develop a muscle memory for the swing. If you are playing tennis, you develop a muscle. Your muscles, you know how to do it. You don't think about it. Once you have people who are empowered, you have your C-level that understands and is plugged into social, companies develop a muscle memory for social. They start identifying moments in which they can tweet or update their status or talk about something on LinkedIn. Do you have muscle memory? So at the end of every quarter or every month, get the agency, get your social media guy, get your marketing person together and ask them, what was our MMQ? What was our muscle memory quotient for this quarter? Which means, which were the moments where we thought, wow, this is a great social moment. Let's talk about something. That's muscle memory. So that's the final nirvana of social media organizational evolution.
That's quite a catchphrase, muscle memory quotient. You would have called it instinct. Us old world traditional people would have called it instinct, but now this sounds like a jargon that I can take into the boardroom and persuade them to track and pay me for. No, I'm not kidding. And Paddy, you've been accusing Kirtika and Nishant of stealing your thunder so long. So this one's for you to start with. And following up on MMQ as well. What are the dumb metrics that we've been tracking? And what are the right social media metrics that we should be measuring and reporting to the boardroom so that we can look good year on year?
So Karthi, I'll disappoint you, but I'll also make you happy. Firstly, there are no dumb metrics. That's number 1. The purpose of a business, through whatever it's doing, is to sell more, to grow. And however close it can get to understanding how their investments are taking them closer to that final purpose, which is sales and growth, I think it's good. It's fine. They should challenge us. They should challenge every penny of investment they make to get us closer to that, that goal. That's number 1. The only dumb thing is the timing. You need to know when to measure what. If you've just started a campaign, you are 10 days into your campaign, and you want to measure the sales impact of this particular campaign, I think that's not smart. It's smart to think of how it is impacting sales, but it's not smart to think of it in the first 10 days. You need to start, you need to walk, run, and then go towards it. So typically we say it's a three-phase cycle. First you get into a listen mode, you understand what's happening, then you get into a connect mode, you connect with things that are relevant to you, and then you get into an explore and express mode. You need to take it one step at a time. So as far as I'm concerned, no dumb metrics, challenge us. I think it's, the more the industry challenges us, the more it's a motivation for us to come up with new technologies, but give it time. Do it in a phased manner.
If the two of you agree, and if you don't have anything additionally to add, I think what we should do is throw it open to the audience, but if you do think you want to add something, feel free.
No, I mean, I won't repeat what we said, he's spot on. I think it's the two other concepts that I introduced is one, iterate. Data is there to give you some input, but then that doesn't mean the answer is shut off or shut back on or accelerate. Figure out what's not working, maybe use it as real time. That's basically what the consumer internet companies here are doing so differently, is they're using real-time data to kind of tweak along the way, and you'll see success coming out of that. So do track stuff. And then think about leading versus lagging metrics. Like sales is a lagging metric, but there are leading metrics that you can track around. We talked about MMQ today. Yesterday I heard there was this reaction was the word that was being used in a lot of panels as a way to, are you engaging the audience? I think reach is still important. To me, it's about the percentage of penetration in your target audience that matters the most. Who is your target audience? Are you reaching them? So those are the things that...
All right, folks. Gentleman in blue in the back. Anyone else wants to get primed up with the mic? Two more gentlemen in blue in the front. Huh?
Hi, can I go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thanks for the wonderfully enlightening session. I'm Vamsi Murthy from Make My Trip. My question was pertaining to usage of LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter in distinctive ways that brands can do. Just to elucidate my question better, what we see nowadays is same kind of content which is posted on at least Twitter and Facebook. There's very little distinction in the way brands use these two. You know your brands the best. So basis your inherent strengths, what do you think is the best way or the distinctive way in which brands can use Twitter and Facebook? For example, if there's a selfie at Oscars, I mean, you tweet and you post a Facebook engagement post.
I think they've got it, and Kirtika's been itching to answer that question for some time now.
That's the first question. If there's no set method in which this can be answered, if you can name a brand and help us understand better, that would be great too. And the second question is to Nishant. Let's say if I were to have a corporate LinkedIn account, what are the 3-4 good things, good practices in which I can post content and engage with my users? Because I think most of us are a little unsure about using LinkedIn through a corporate channel. The other two are pretty clear. Thanks.
I'll talk about great content on Facebook, and I'd love to hear thoughts from the co-panelists. The picture in our mind is walking to a Kirana store, and the Kirana store owner knows which, where you came from, which brand of tea you want, puts the right brand, the right quantity of rice, and puts the right thing, and knows what products that might interest you, puts that out there. When in a lot of the mass media channels, you don't get that kind of personalization. We find good content on Facebook is content that really leverages the targeting abilities. You have real identities on Facebook, and so great content leverages that to put the right content in front of the right people. If you're a smartphone user, there's probably a set of things that you're interested in. If you're a feature phone user, probably a set of things you're interested in. If you are, Make My Trip, which city they come from, what kind of, we can give you heavy travelers, business travelers, whether they're situated away from home. So it's about really using that personalization, that targeting capabilities to have that connect with the person at a deeply personalized way. So that's, I think, the biggest thing that I would highlight as far as great content on Facebook.
So on Twitter, I think there are great content should go through 3 filters. First look at what's the core element of the medium that you're using. We believe there are a lot of commonalities between Twitter, Facebook, but there are also a core which is uniquely belongs to this platform. And we believe Twitter's core is it's live. It's real time. When you open your Twitter account, you look at the tweets probably in the last couple of hours or immediately what's happening, and then you move on. So it's live, it's public. Yes, you have some followers, you have the notion of friends and people who follow you, but anyone can contact anyone on Twitter, right? So it's public. And C, it's conversational. It's live, public, and conversational. And as long as your content satisfies all 3, or maybe a combination of these elements, I think it's good content. And I'll give you an example. There's a company called American Apparel. They used to specialize in email marketing. Every time they would have these garments that will go out of season, they would send emails to their people who would subscribe to their email group, and that was their strategy to remove the old stock. Now the email open rates started coming down. So they moved the entire email marketing to Twitter. Now what happened was this. Now they have these things called flash sales. So they do this sale for 24 to 48 hours. So there is a concept of live, real time in this. The other thing that used to happen earlier was when people used to get an email from them which said, hey, there was a sale for 24 hours, and people would see that after 48 hours, they actually used to get angry. Why didn't you tell us? Now on Twitter, because what you see is immediate, and if you haven't seen it, you won't miss it. You won't know what you missed it. So you are not creating angry customers. They've added one more dimension to it. They use a strategy called flock to unlock. So what to say is, if this particular offer gets 5,000 retweets, that's when we will unlock a 15% discount. So they are using the virality and conversation part of it as well. They are getting people to retweet their message. And after 5,000 retweets have been made, for instance, they know there's a certain demand for this particular product, and they unlock the sale. I think that's great content. It's live, it's using the public part of it, retweet, and it's conversational. So as long as you're sticking to the core of what that medium stands for, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, I think that's good content.
So for the LinkedIn part of your question, I think LinkedIn aspires to be the most effective place online for brands to engage with professionals. There's a couple of keywords in there. There's engage, there's relevance, and so what you should be thinking of as a brand is it in a professional context my message, or are we trying to do a one-time offer which doesn't quite resonate with the audience that's coming in, right? So there was some TNS research that showed us that the audience that's coming to our site is aspirational. They're looking for the next thing that's happening in their careers. They're looking to be more productive and successful. So we've seen things like Mercedes doing, in-tips campaigns, which got a lot of this thing, because you're helping them with some tips. Those happen to be LinkedIn. There's some other tips on, how do you buy a car, etc. That resonated really well with them. Second thing was relevance, right? What is relevant to these people? So I used the city example in the past, but even if you think about, say, Microsoft as an example, they're talking about the personalization that Kritika was mentioning at that point, which is relevant to them. So there's an ad that they've designed, they won some awards for, where based on knowing who I am, what kind of person I am, I'm an engineer versus a sales guy, and so on, they customize pretty much the whole ad. Should I show project in that Office 365, or should I show Excel, or should I show something else? That's the degree of relevance that people are doing, right? And then the third is engagement. To what Barry was saying earlier, don't look to make a fast buck immediately, right? You've shown them something and say, okay, now pay up. So engage them over time, make it about them, and you'll see sort of goodness coming out of that. So a lot of company pages that are there are doing targeted status updates. So to an engineering audience, they would send a message maybe tweaked a certain way, whereas to a, I don't know, you could go either by function or geography or whatever, but tailor your message. Those are the things that are working really well, and then they're iterating on those. So that they see, okay, there's a lot of engagement with this particular thing. The next update they do is relevant, in line with that. Or if something's not working, they say, okay, maybe you'd spark that and try something different.
Sir, I know you have the mic, but I have a request if you don't mind. We have 3 minutes left. We have time only for one question. So may I suggest that age go before beauty, and you give it to the gentleman in the glorious goatee. And before you start, sir, I found something curious today. All these three brands are blue in color, and all three questioners today are wearing blue shirts.
What an insight. Fantastic. Thank you. I have this actually not really a question, but an accusation to the three of you, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I believe, ask anybody who was a marketer in this audience, they will tell you that you've done a pathetic job of educating the marketers on how to leverage your such a powerful product that you have.
I actually am Ankur Jain and I burn millions of rupees in Facebook. But I'm very unhappy. Like there's no kind of a contact number. Google guys are literally behind me. In fact, Google has sponsored my participation over here. You please come and done social marketing. So Facebook doesn't have a call center number, or you don't have I don't advertise through agencies. I do it directly on my own. So
So I'll close. I think you should engage with him offline. Sponsor some seminars here. What is this Kirtika?
No.
How many employees do you think Facebook has globally? Quick. 6,000 someone said. I think that's reasonably close to the Twitter. We all know how many employees WhatsApp has. Yeah, this is not fair. Okay, I'll close here with a lot of thanks. I took a lot of liberties with you luminaries today, and you've been very gracious in permitting me to do that. But I thought it was really rich and rewarding, and we'll have Facebook sponsor us for the next seminar, don't worry. Thank you very much, everyone.